Let me tell you about James Okafor. 38 years old. National Operations Director at Crestwood Logistics, a freight and supply chain company moving industrial goods across 14 states. James was not a desk executive. He showed up on loading docks at 5 a.m., knew every regional hub manager by name, and had personally redesigned the routing infrastructure that reduced Crestwood's delivery failures by 34% in 3 years. He was the operational heartbeat of the company. He was also, unbeknownst to him, the subject of a key person insurance policy that Crestwood had taken out 2 years earlier, a $15 million policy designed to protect the company against the financial impact of losing James suddenly. Standard corporate practice for indispensable executives. Except for one non-standard detail. A clause James had negotiated into his employment agreement in year 3, during a compensation review where the board had offered equity that James had declined in favor of something more specific. In the event of a qualifying disability arising from a work-related incident, the key person policy benefit would be paid directly to James, not to Crestwood. The board had agreed. The CFO had initialed it. The insurance carrier had amended the policy accordingly. Then everyone had filed it away and forgotten about it. Until a Crestwood company vehicle, maintained by the company fleet, flagged twice in the previous quarter for brake system concerns that had not been addressed, ran a rural intersection in Tennessee, and changed James Okafor's life permanently. Spinal cord injury. Partial paralysis. Permanent. Below the waist. He was 38 years old. He had 2 daughters. A mother he supported. A life built on his ability to show up, physically and completely, in the demanding operational world he had mastered. And when he was still in the rehabilitation unit, still processing what permanent meant, Crestwood's insurance department sent a letter. His health coverage would transition to COBRA upon medical leave expiration. The key person policy was an asset of Crestwood Logistics, not James personally. It would be applied to business continuity costs. James read the letter, read it again. Asked his wife to bring his employment agreement from the fireproof box in their home office. She brought it. He found the clause. Called his attorney. This is the story of how one injured man in a rehabilitation unit used a single negotiated clause to secure his family's future, and how the company that denied him coverage paid him $15 million directly. Buckle up, because this one isn't about revenge. It's about a man who planned ahead when nobody thought he needed to. It started 3 years before the accident. James had been at Crestwood 4 years when the board offered him an equity package during his annual review. Options vesting over 4 years, tied to company performance. James looked at the offer, looked at the company's debt structure, looked at the PFO firm's 5-year exit timeline, and made a quiet calculation. Equity in a P-backed logistics company with a leveraged balance sheet was not the security he was looking for. He had 2 daughters. A mother in Lagos he sent money to every month, a life built on certainty, not upside. He wanted something that paid regardless of whether the company was sold, restructured, or taken private. So he made a counter-proposal. Not more salary, not a signing bonus. A clause. James had researched key person insurance, had spoken with an attorney friend who specialized in executive compensation, and had walked into the negotiation knowing exactly what he wanted. If Crestwood held a key person policy on him, which he suspected they did, he wanted the benefit directed to him personally in the event of a qualifying work-related disability. The board's compensation committee discussed it. The CFO consulted the insurance broker. The broker confirmed it was structurally possible, unusual, but possible. The board agreed, in part because they believed it was unlikely to ever be triggered, and in part because it was cheaper than the equity package originally offered. The clause was written. The policy was amended. And then, as these things do, it was filed and forgotten. James had not forgotten. He reviewed his employment agreement every year. Because James understood that the documents you sign in good times are the ones that protect you in bad ones. Now, if you believe that preparation is the most profound form of self-respect, subscribe to Tangled Stories. I'm Brett. Around here, the people who plan quietly always outlast the ones who act carelessly. The accident happened on a Tuesday morning in March. James was a passenger in a Crestwood fleet vehicle traveling to inspect a distribution facility in rural Tennessee. The vehicle had been flagged twice in the previous quarter's maintenance review for brake system irregularities. The maintenance had been scheduled, then delayed, then overlooked in a cost reduction push implemented to improve EBITDA ahead of a refinancing. At a rural intersection, at highway speed, the brakes failed. The hub manager driving sustained injuries he recovered from. James sustained a spinal cord injury that the attending physician described without ambiguity as permanent. Airlifted to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. 11 days in acute care, 6 weeks inpatient rehabilitation. Then months of outpatient therapy learning to navigate a world redesigned around a body that no longer worked the way it had for 38 years. Crestwood's initial response was warm. Flowers, cards, a call from the CEO, assurances they were family. Then the insurance department sent the letter. James read it in the rehabilitation unit. Called David Merritt, his attorney who had helped draft the clause 3 years earlier. David, James said, they're claiming the key person policy belongs to the company. Send me the letter, David said. And the policy amendment. James's wife sent both that afternoon. David called back the next morning. James, the amendment is clear. Benefit directed to you personally upon qualifying disability from a work-related incident. Spinal cord injury in a company vehicle during company business is textbook qualifying. Their basis for denial is not legitimate. Are they going to fight it? James asked. They're going to try, David said. Because $15 million is $15 million. But their position is weak. James looked out the rehabilitation unit window. Then let's begin, he said. David's letter arrived at Crestwood's legal department on a Thursday. 4 pages. It outlined the employment agreement clause, the policy amendment, the qualifying nature of the incident, and James's formal claim for the full benefit. It also outlined, in a separate section, the maintenance history of the vehicle, the 2 flagged brake irregularities, the delayed maintenance schedule, the cost reduction directive that contributed to the delay. That section was not about the insurance claim. It was about negligence. And it was included deliberately. Because David understood that $15 million insurance claims are easier to pay when the alternative involves a negligence lawsuit with documented evidence of ignored maintenance flags on a company vehicle. General Counsel Patricia Vance read the letter, read the maintenance section, called the fleet operations manager and asked, very specifically, why a vehicle with 2 flagged brake concerns had been cleared for highway travel. The answer was not satisfying. She called outside counsel. Outside counsel reviewed the policy amendment, the employment agreement clause, and the maintenance records. Their assessment: the insurance claim was legitimate, the clause was enforceable, and the negligence exposure, permanently paralyzed executive, company vehicle, 2 ignored maintenance flags, documented cost reduction directive, was significant. What's our position if we contest the claim? Patricia asked. Weak on insurance, outside counsel said. And contesting while exposed on negligence is a combination that will not look good in discovery. Patricia walked into the CEO's office. Close the door. We have a problem, she said. And it has 2 parts. The negotiation took 6 weeks. James participated from home, discharged from inpatient rehabilitation, continuing outpatient therapy through David, Crestwood's first position, acknowledged the clause, structured payout over 5 years, broad release of all claims including negligence. David, the clause specified no payout structure. Full benefit payable upon claim approval. 5-year structuring was not in the agreement. Crestwood's second position. Lump sum with a reduction for administrative costs. David, the amendment contained no such provision. Full benefit. No reduction. On negligence, David made clear James's case was strong and was being pursued separately and completely, not as leverage, but because James had been permanently injured due to Crestwood's operational decisions. Crestwood settled the negligence claim for an additional $4.2 million. The key person policy paid in full, $15 million, direct to James, per the clause. Per the amendment. Per the agreement everyone had filed and forgotten. Except James. James did not return to Crestwood. Not because he couldn't have negotiated a role, but because he had looked honestly at what he needed. Time with his daughters. Space to rebuild his physical life. Energy not spent on an organization that has sent a COBRA letter while he was in a rehabilitation unit. The $19.2 million key person policy plus negligence settlement was placed in a structured financial plan. His mother's support secured permanently, his daughter's education funded completely, his home modified for full accessibility, a trust established. And in the 2nd year after the accident, James began consulting. Not in logistics. In executive compensation planning. Helping operational executives understand what their employment agreements actually said. What key person policies existed in their organizations. What clauses were available that most people never thought to negotiate. He called it, privately, planning for the unthinkable. Because the unthinkable, in his experience, was simply the thing that happened to the people who hadn't planned for it. Crestwood's fleet maintenance program was overhauled within 90 days of the settlement. Every vehicle inspected. A mandatory completion policy implemented. No maintenance flag cleared without documented repair, regardless of cost reduction initiatives. The operations VP who had implemented the cost reduction directive left 6 months after the settlement. Patricia Vance implemented a mandatory executive contract review process. Every key person policy, every insurance amendment, reviewed annually. She called it, internally, the Okafor Review. The broker who had originally confirmed the amendment was possible spoke at an industry conference the following year and referenced the case without names. The unusual clause, he said, is usually the one that matters most. James still does outpatient therapy on Tuesday mornings. Same gym, same therapist, same steady, unglamorous progression that recovery requires. His daughters visit every weekend. He keeps one document framed in his home office. Not the settlement agreement. Not the payout confirmation. The original employment agreement, page 7. The clause. 12 lines negotiated in a compensation meeting 3 years before anyone thought they would matter. Underneath, in his own handwriting, plan for the unthinkable. Then live like you did. And that, my friends, is how one man in a rehabilitation unit, with a permanent injury and a COBRA letter on his bedside table, secured his family's future with 12 lines he had written into a document 3 years earlier. Not revenge. Not a loophole, not luck. Just a man who read carefully, asked the right questions, and refused to sign anything that didn't protect the people who depended on him. Because some people negotiate for more money. And some people negotiate for the clause that means their family is okay no matter what happens. James negotiated for the second one. And when the unthinkable happened, the clause was already there, waiting. If this story moved you, subscribe to Tangled Stories, drop a like, and share this with anyone who has ever signed an employment agreement without reading every page. Because here, every story has a twist. And sometimes that twist is the 12 lines nobody else remembered were there. I'm Brett, and I'll see you in the next one.